Hi everyone, welcome to this continuing saga of Truth Noir. We continually are finding new and weird things to talk about that are just not being covered in the news, so this episode is no different. I'm joined by longtime friend of the show, longtime co-host, Mr. Dirk Beechum, and yeah, we just, you know, these weird things keep coming up, so we wanted to bring a couple of them up and also just kind of introduce a couple things as topics for future episodes because there's actually a lot to say about all of these things, so we'll continue with those in the future. But what was the first one you found first, Dirk?
There's been a lot of UN armored vehicles seen in the eastern United States.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of that. Like they are just trucking them in on big flatbeds.
Brand new ones, and some of them as far west as Texas, some of them in Virginia, and there's been, of course, the official saying is that there's nothing more than the U.S. manufacturing and transporting these items. But there are others that say, well, they see films with our military working with foreign soldiers in domestic type drills that they're going through. And they're saying, but of course the anti-UN theory would be that, let's just say for the sake of our argument that all hell broke loose and martial law was declared. Perhaps the government wanted us to turn in our guns. I don't believe any members of our military would follow that order. I can totally see foreign troops having no problem whatsoever following that order or engaging us. There's the theory, because that's what Russia used to do. The old Russia, they did that thing right after World War II where they took 20,000, or they took several thousand Lithuanian soldiers and they brought them over to another part of Russia to squash an uprising. And while those soldiers were away, they went in Lithuania and killed tens of thousands of protesters there with different ethnic groups because they would be able to do that.
Yeah, and we found a bunch of good pictures, and these are like UN vehicles on American soil, and it's not just a few of them helping out with organization, you know, for a natural disaster. Like this one says weapons enforcement on it, and it's like a heavily armored vehicle. It's not like a water tanker that would be helping, you know, to provide clean water for people, or a big, you know, UN semi-truck that would be bringing in food and aid supplies or anything like that. This is, it's basically a 4x4 tank.
It is
with
bulletproof glass and
and again, these are not, you know, just a few. They're bringing these in masse on you know, big flatbed trucks, 4 at a time, and
trains, rail cars too.
Yeah, and I don't know why. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, there's one guy.
I don't really have any commentary.
Bobby Wynn wrote that he witnessed similar scenes in Texas. He wondered why 30 United Nations vehicles fully loaded with combat-prepared troops were driving down our highway in Dallas, Texas. This is not good at all, Bo felt. Armageddon.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not predicting anything.
American, you know, now there is a the contractor General Dynamics does make these armored vehicles. So we are one of the main manufacturers of UN armored vehicles.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they've never like been parading them down the street.
Yeah, so what that's all about.
You know, ever seen. So anyways, there's that going on.
we'll keep you updated on that.
And yeah, like these are not.
That would be nice to drive around in that one.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be fun, but I don't see what any practical application for that is except for crowd control.
Yeah, it's not really good for supplying food or.
Yeah, like all that's good for is carrying armed troops.
Yeah.
Like I don't see a big storage bay where they're putting bottled water and.
No, and they got that nice turret, machine gun turret on top.
Yeah, there's that too.
So yeah. And,
yeah, so we'll see what fun stuff happens with those. Hopefully they just ship them off somewhere where the UN does stuff.
Yeah.
And not use them here.
What I was going to get to, we'll just leave on that for a second.
Sure.
Because we'll talk about how, they ranked several U.S. cities. Los Angeles and Glendale were two of the worst of the 200 top cities when it came to drivers. Los Angeles was 193 and Glendale was 195. So I guess that the stereotype of Asian drivers is not true. The Armos are the bad drivers.
Well,
I'm not supposed to say that on this show, am I?
Well, you know,
with one eyebrow they'd be able to focus and aim better.
I'm not sure if it's true, Dirk, is the only thing. I'm not going to.
It is a little racist.
I'm not going to censor what you're saying,
okay.
But I just don't know if it's true. The statistics, I think, speak for themselves.
Yes.
They apparently there are. Now, how do they gauge these statistics? Is it by?
I don't know.
The probably number of accidents or
and it's not exactly a government funded thing. It's an Allstate insurance company. They judge this.
So that would be probably based on the number of accident insurance claims.
And I would say one thing. They would probably base it on financial stuff. So, which ironically in this case, I would have to say a big company might be correct just because it's motivation and it's being honest about its motivation. It's saying, well, hey, I pay out more in Glendale than I do in other towns, and I don't like that.
Right.
And so yeah. So there we go. Now this.
You said there was some other stuff that happened in Glendale too, right?
Oh, there was the city's had its first homicide last week. This might be what we're going to. A Florida man was shot to death from the front yard of Glendale early Saturday morning. The city's first homicide of 2016. At 4 o'clock in the morning on the 1600 block of Maywood Street, officers arrived to find a man lying face down on the lawn. The homeowners didn't know him, but they say he was later identified as Philip Niles Jr., 25 years old, of Daytona Beach, Florida. Now, I couldn't find any written information on the internet more, but during the interview I saw that day that it happened, when they interviewed the people, they kept mentioning that they had heard or that they suspected that it was a female suspect, and that it was interesting that that a woman had shot this guy and shot him in the way that normally a man shoots a man.
Did she hold her gun sideways?
I don't know if she shot it like a gangbanger.
Is that what happened?
But what was funny, though, that when I read on several different sites, Channel 7 site and other sites, they gave you the basic information, everything except the suspect. And they never mentioned the suspect. And they never even said much other. They just said the investigation was ongoing. So it was odd that...
So this is someone that they've not apprehended yet?
No, and maybe that's why they haven't mentioned... they didn't want to mention any more about the suspect because, but in the interview, they had the guy who owned the house said, "Oh yeah, it's kind of weird that a woman did this," and but like I said, there's no print evidence of they're ever mentioning that their suspect was a woman or a man, and they don't even. And oddly enough, they don't mention much at all about the suspect being anything about the suspect. So it's still at large, but they're. So maybe that ties into the Mandela effect. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing, and this is one of the topics that I want to get a lot more into and maybe do a full episode about.
Yeah.
But I've been hearing more and more and more about it over probably the last 6 months to a year. And it seems that there are a lot of memories that people have, and these are like collective memories of like big world events, or just like common things that were kind of ubiquitous in the human experience during a certain time, that are no longer that way. They're slightly different. Now on the show a few months ago when we were talking about the possibly having slipped into another dimension, the thing was the Berenstein Bears books. Now the Berenstein is now spelled Berenstain, and you can't find any books anymore with it spelled
with an E.
Steen, S-T-E-I-N,
which is the way
I A-I-N? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember watching the cartoons and it was E-I-N.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah.
And I had books that were spelled E-I-N, Steen or Stein. And now it's Stain, S-T-A-I-N. And now this is odd because like there are many people with this collective memory. And now I'm looking on your notes here, and it says that so what this is called is the mandala effect, and it basically has to do with what we just said, that people's memories no longer matching with the current evidence of a thing. And so there's other ones like the common spice turmeric, which I remember being spelled T-U-M-E-R-I-C. I'm now seeing spelled T-U-R-M-E-R-I-C, turmeric. And I've never heard of that before.
And what was it spelled before?
T-U-M-E-R-I-C.
Oh, turmeric.
And
now
this
turmeric?
Turmeric.
Turmeric.
And this seems to be across brands. Like this is not just a misprint of one bottle. Like I can't find that spice in the store anymore, spelled the original way that I remember it. And see what else. Oh, there's lots of Bible verses that people are now looking in Bibles that they have had since they were kids, and certain verses have changed. Obviously, we're going to need to do some more research on this, but there are many, many examples of this that I've come across recently that I think deserves a little more looking into because it's weird.
Yeah.
And that's what we do on the show.
Yeah. So I guess the definition by Wikipedia is the Mandela effect is a concept associated with a woman named Fiona Brome. It describes a situation where a number of people have memories that are different to available evidence. Brome says the name comes from several people having memories of Nelson Mandela dying in the 1980s rather than in 2013. In discussion with friends, a question has been raised: when someone accepts the idea that the Mandela effect is real, does this reduce one's resistance to it? And does this result in more frequent slides from one reality to another? Instead of a subconscious effort not to slide, we are mentally catching the wave and riding it to the next cooler alternative experience? That's the question. I'm interested in whether you feel that, since looking at the Mandela effect concept and deciding that it might be real, you're seeing an increasing number of changes. I don't mean WOA, when did that change moments. I mean times when you look at something and know it was different yesterday, or a time since you stumbled onto the Mandela effect. I'm not looking for a list of shifting memories. Mostly I'm interested in your theories about what's going on, and if you're seeing more changes since you considered the Mandela effect and decided it's not only possible, but okay. To use an old phrase, Now that you know about the Mandela effect, are you happy, or at least somewhat content, to go with the flow?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to be one of those things that we can really do anything about. But I've noticed little instances of it, and then I've seen it, when people present things like this, like some big instances of it, where I'm just like, yeah, no, that's not the same at all as I remember.
I'll tell you one thing I've noticed, and as I get older, I don't think this is metaphysical. I think it might be just good old-fashioned chemical and brainwashing.
And getting senile.
It seems that people are less free-thinking than they used to be, and that, and I think either, in a certain extent, either the Middle Easterners had cornered this part of the market, and I think the Chinese, probably perfected by Mao Zedong, cornered this other part of the market, and how to make people kind of just follow along.
Sure.
And really cut down tremendously on free thinking. So we live in a time where it used to be you just control people by controlling their knowledge. You'd always have people rising up anyway, because it's word of mouth, but it was always. We now live in a time where there should be nothing but unbridled democracy anywhere in the world, because there's just so much information.
Sure.
But there's also been an increase in technology on how to chemically stop, because it's all your brain is chemical processes. So now, and of course, big corporations run the majority of pharmaceutical production,
right.
So they could create any kind of drug they want, mass produce it, and it just seems people are less free thinking than they were before. And
well, while I agree with you, and that's definitely a valid point, I think these examples, though, like these things, kind of minor as they might be.
Yeah. And this just might be a side effect. That's my theory, that this is just a side effect of some kind of mass mind control of the government. Now, your theory that you were telling me earlier this evening was that this is actually a byproduct of something completely different. It's a byproduct of
sliding into another dimension.
And that we have memories of parallel dimensions. So, because the mind is more subtle. So, books may not change, because my theory is the Bible never really changed. It's our memory of it. We're just now having a memory
Sure.
from another universe that had the Bible written differently. So the Bible didn't change the universe, or the paper didn't change the universe. Our mind did, because it was just, we now have the memory of the guy, and he has our memory. So,
right.
So to both of us, the Bible looks different, when in fact it's still the same. And it's all started by, you said, like the CERN collider, and more technologies that we have around the world of fooling with.
Yeah, I mean,
interdimensional.
I think when you have the ability of something to recreate the Big Bang,
Yeah.
or to,
I mean, literally know to what to go to the edge of the universe and literally manipulate quantum particles, not just subatomic particles, but now we go beyond that. We go to what makes up the subatomic particles. So we can manipulate particles, and we've already noticed that in labs, they change time. They seem to travel in time.
well, yeah, and there's already examples of that too, and that it's commonly reported that they've observed particles traveling backwards in time, or that they've been able to,
Or they get a double.
right, yeah,
You know,
or that they have been able to successfully produce quantum teleportation.
Or teleportation,
And, my opinion of the matter is always, well, if that's what we're being told, that they're able to do this little tiny thing now, they're probably able to do it
On a larger scale.
and just not telling anyone. Now, I don't know that that's the case. Maybe it's closer to your theory, where it's a organized mass hypnosis kind of thing.
And it just so happens to also affect your memory on what you read on a spice bottle years earlier.
Right, and there's certainly examples of that being done by government on a huge scale.
Yeah. And there is something interesting when you see that. I mean, I've met a lot of. It's funny because my theory is Americans are becoming more like Chinese, and it's just the way we go into our little homes and we don't want to get to know our neighbors, and you know what I'm saying? We're becoming homogenous, and it just seems, but in a way that just seems to be so helpful to corporations, because they don't want you to be running around trying to find your own love and your own heart and your own soul.
Right, and I think overall just being much more passive, like the things that Americans at large put up with.
Yeah.
The very gradual and sometimes not so gradual degradation of rights and freedoms. You know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And there were people protesting in the streets 50 years ago for things that were going on far less terrible, far less invasive than there are now.
Yeah, I just came from Angeles Crest Mountains, and I spent one night up there. It's up at 7,000 feet off in the San Gabriel Mountains, and they took out two payphones that were up in this one area. You get no cell phone reception. The ranger doesn't stop by as much as he used to. And I was thinking, well, what happens if somebody has a heart attack? You'd be screwed. So we live in more modern times, and yet we have less access to our forest. They seem to take care of it less, and yet I see more workers up there. I don't know what they're doing. And what else did I notice? Well, the forest itself was still cheap. It was $12 a night, but what do I want to say? You have to pay, if you park along the side of the road, you have to pay for a $30 yearly pass, or you'll get a $35 ticket. So where's all this money to go? It used to be all free when I was a kid, you know, except for if you're going to spend the night in a campground. Other than that, there was a pay phone, and there was, you know, and there was all this. You had more access when there wasn't cell phones than there is now. So we're just tolerating a lot of this, but it's okay because you have to give a tax break to the rich. And if you mention raising taxes to the rich, I mean, I have lots of friends, and you have them too, that would just get upset.
That's class warfare.
And you're taught to on any network TV, even Channel 7 or Channel 4 or whatever, you don't have to go to Fox News anymore to get the stink eye when you mention, well, I think, you know, maybe they should start chipping in for free payphones along the Angeles Crest Highway, or maybe, oh my God, you just get this.
Or
it's like I'm a bad person for mentioning that, you know.
Yeah, no, it's there's still some work to do.
Yeah, yeah. Thank God, Truth NOIR is going to keep the battle going.
I'm going to try to.
And if anyone ever wants to get on the show, well, you can send a message to Truth NOIR through messaging through YouTube. And we will, in the future, be posting an email down below us. So you can email us and tell us your questions, your criticisms, your ideas, or if you want to be a guest on the show, we're always looking for new guests with new ideas and new opinions.
Yeah, because, you know,
I'm getting tired. Tired looking.
So we're running out of time for this episode. This was kind of more of an introduction of ideas that we want to try and expand on in the near future.
Because we're revamping Truth NOIR.
That's true.
We're going to have the new and improved coming up for 2017, so stay tuned.
All right. So, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to taking a deeper look into these topics.
Yes. And this Mandela effect, I didn't know much about it until you told me to research it, and now I'm going to go home and do much more reading on it.
Yeah, it's a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah, I'm fascinated now by it.
And then, we will also want to find out why there's a bunch of fucking armored UN vehicles
Yeah.
rolling through the
Isn't the UN
eastern
supposed to be
seaboard.
helping out Africa and Eastern Europe and
Well, yeah, you would think we got things covered here pretty much.
yeah.
But, yeah, so anyways, we're going to go ahead and sign off for the day. We'll catch you next week. Thanks for watching, and wherever you're going. Oh, you don't want to finish my line?
No. Wherever you're going, get there safe.
Yeah, all right. We'll catch you next time. Take care.